taking a live India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. US President says Israel Prime Minister's approach on Gaza was a mistake, calls for a ceasefire. Spain, Australia and Qatar support a Palestinian statehood. US hosts Japan's leader for talks on joint development of military equipment. The president of the Philippines to join Trilateral Summit in Washington, D.C. on Thursday. An exit poll shows that South Korea's opposition party and its allies are projected to win a majority in Wednesday's elections for the country's legislature. Japan's Prime Minister Kishida will hold a summit with US President Joe Biden in Washington, D.C., showcasing closer security and economic ties between the allies. The two leaders are expected to announce measures to enhance security cooperation and enable greater coordination and integration of their respective forces in the face of China's growing might. On Tuesday, the Bidens welcomed Prime Minister Kishida Fumio and his wife to the White House. Kishida is the fifth world leader honored by Biden with a state dinner since he took office in 2021. Kishida addressed a roundtable on critical and emerging technologies hosted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in Washington, D.C. He saw opportunities for more collaboration with the U.S. in next-generation computer chips.
Japan welcomes investment from the United States that push forward such cooperation in critical and emerging technology. The economic growth our country obtains through your investments shall serve as a funding source of further investments into the United States by Japanese entities.
Prime Minister Kishida has also been invited to address a joint meeting of the U.S. legislature on Thursday. He will be only the second Japanese leader to address the House. The late Abe Shinzo gave a speech in the year 2015. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. of the Philippines on Wednesday said that the upcoming Trilateral Summit with the U.S. and Japanese leadership in Washington, D.C. on Thursday will include an agreement to maintain security and freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. Talking to media, Marcos said that the meet is mainly an agreement to strengthen economic cooperation among the three countries. He added that during the meeting, defense and security ties will also be discussed, but that is not the main intent. President Marcos's visit to the U.S. is a follow-up on Biden and Marcos's last meeting in 2023. And ahead of the Trilateral Summit, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has said that more joint patrols can be expected in the South China Sea in the near future after drills by the U.S., Australia, the Philippines and Japan last weekend. Warships from the four nations staged the exercises on Sunday following stepped-up Chinese pressure on the Philippines in the disputed strategic waterway. Sullivan said that the U.S. and its existing Australian and British partners in the AUKUS Security Pact would explore possible Japanese involvement in Pillar 2 of the project. U.S. President Joe Biden says that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's approach on Gaza was a mistake, especially the strikes that killed 8 workers last week. In an interview to a U.S. Spanish-language network, Univision, Biden called for a ceasefire and total access to all food and medicine entering Gaza. Biden's remarks on a ceasefire marked a shift from his previous comments in which he said that the burden lies with Hamas to agree to a truce and hostage release deal.
I think what he's doing is a mistake. I don't agree with his approach. I think it's outrageous that those three vehicles were hit by drones and taken out on a highway where it wasn't like it was along the shore. It wasn't like there was a convoy moving there, etc. So what I'm calling for is for the Israelis to just call for a ceasefire, allow for the next 6-8 weeks total access to all food and medicine going into the country. I've spoken with everyone from the Saudis to the Jordanians to the Egyptians. They're prepared to move in. They're prepared to move this food in, and I think there's no excuse to not provide for the medical and the food needs of those people. They should be done now.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met his British counterpart David Cameron in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday and discussed Israel's Rafah plans, besides pushing for a ceasefire next week.
Just yesterday, more than 400 trucks were cleared to go into Gaza, and that is the most since October 7th in any given day. But what matters is results and sustained results. And this is what we will be looking at very carefully in the days ahead. And that includes making sure that the assistance that gets into Gaza is distributed effectively throughout Gaza, not just in the south.
For his part, UK Foreign Secretary David Cameron reiterated his concern over humanitarian access in Gaza. Cameron said that the UK's position on arms sales to Israel was unchanged.
The latest assessment leaves our position on export licenses unchanged. This is consistent with the advice that I and other ministers have received, and as ever we will keep the position under review. Let me be clear though, we continue to have grave concerns around the humanitarian access issue in Gaza, both for the period that was assessed and subsequently.
And DD India's Alex Cadier has more from Tel Aviv.
The latest we have is that the proposal that had been tabled by the CIA Director Bill Burns and broadly accepted by the Israelis has in large parts been rejected by Hamas. Now, the terms of that would have been 40 Israeli hostages released for 900 Palestinian prisoners. That's up from 700 in the last proposal. They include 100 serving life sentences in Israel. Now, on that already there's a sticking point for Hamas. They say that they do not have 40 hostages in what is known as the vulnerable category, so women, injured and elderly, that are still alive, and they do not want to reach the number of 40 by allowing men of fighting age or younger men to be released as well. So that is one point rejected by Hamas. The other, they want to be able to choose which 100 prisoners serving life sentences are released, and on that again they do not want Israel to have the decision to make on that particular issue. Now, the other issue, the return of civilians to northern Gaza. We know that the Israelis have increased the number of civilians they say they will allow to return to the north of the enclave, but again Hamas saying that they do not want to see Israeli security checks on people heading back north. So these are the kind of details that are being discussed, that are being debated. At the moment, we understand the latest we have from Hamas is that the proposal does not meet their demands. They continue to study it. We understand we may have some progress, we may have some movement in the next few hours. From Israel's foreign minister, Israel Katz, he says, well, if Iran were to strike Israel from its territory, Israel will respond in kind. And that clearly showing that while we expected an escalation perhaps in the north with the Iran-backed Hezbollah militia, or with Iran flooding more weapons into the West Bank to try and increase the attacks on Israelis, this could lead, we understand, this war of words to a direct escalation between Israel and Iran, which could plunge this region into further violence.
Now, a shift in policy is becoming visible as the world considers a two-state solution to end the Israel-Palestinian conflict. Australia's Foreign Minister Penny Wong on Tuesday said that Canberra would consider recognition of a Palestinian state. In a speech at the Australian National University, Minister Wong backed comments by Britain's Foreign Secretary David Cameron, who has said that recognizing a Palestinian state, including at the United Nations, would make a two-state solution irreversible. Spain and Qatar have also supported a Palestinian statehood.
We are now 30 years on from the Oslo Accords. 30 years on from the Accords that put Palestinian statehood at the end of a process. And the failure of this approach by all parties over decades, as well as the Netanyahu government's refusal to even engage on the question of a Palestinian state, have caused widespread frustration. So the international community is now considering the question of Palestinian statehood as a way of building momentum towards a two-state solution. Recognising a Palestinian state, one that can only exist side by side with a secure Israel, doesn't just offer the Palestinian people an opportunity to realise their aspirations, it also strengthens the forces for peace, and it undermines extremism.
In South Korea, exit polls projected that the main opposition Democratic Party and its allies will win a majority in Wednesday's election for the country's legislature. It would mark a significant blow to President Yoon Suk-yeol. A joint poll released by 3 national broadcasters estimated that the opposition DP and its allies could secure between 183 to 197 seats in the single-chamber 300-seat legislature. President Yoon's Conservative People Power Party and its affiliates would win 85 to 100. Another poll conducted by a cable network showed the opposition camp getting 168 to 193 seats, while it put the PPP coalition at 87 to 111. PPP chief Han Duk-hoon, who had said that an opposition majority would create a crisis for the country, said that the exit polls were disappointing, adding though that he was still awaiting the final result.
We tried our best to do politics that uphold the will of the people, but the results of exit polls are disappointing. However, we will wait till the very end for the final results of the vote counting while watching the people's choice.
Official results are not expected to be released until the early hours of Thursday local time, but exit polls in previous elections have given a broadly accurate reflection of the results. As DD India's Chris Gilbert reports, local media predict a blow to the ruling People's Power Party and its president, Yoon Suk-yeol.
The ballots are now officially being counted, and exit polls suggest that the final results may well show a significant victory for the opposition Democratic Party and a worse defeat than expected for the ruling People Power Party, and a blow to the presidency of Yoon Suk-yeol, who is a member of that party. Now, his presidency is not at stake in this election, but what is at stake is the amount of power that he holds and the amount of power that his party had. It was already a minority in the parliament, and the results of this election really determine whether Yoon Suk-yeol is going to sit out the rest of his 3 years of his term as a lame duck president with another minority government, or, as some exit polls are suggesting, a much worse situation for him, that the Democratic Party actually and coalition partners actually succeed in attaining a 2/3 majority of parliament, which some exit polls are forecasting. Now, if that happens, it effectively means that the president loses his veto power. He can still veto any legislation that goes through that opposition majority parliament, but that 2/3 parliament, that 2/3 majority, would give the opposition the power to veto his veto, and therefore being able to pass effectively anything that they like. It also gives them the power to change the constitution and to pass motions of impeachment against the president and the lawmakers in the parliament as well. So this all depends on the final results, which are being counted at the moment. It was a much higher turnout than expected. About 30% of votes were cast early, the highest number of early votes ever cast in a South Korean parliamentary election. There was high anticipation for this poll, which does now turn out to be looking like a significant defeat for the People Power Party and a significant victory for the opposition Democratic Party. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo, reporting for DD India.
Ireland's parliament has elected Simon Harris as the country's new and youngest ever Prime Minister, officially taking office in Dublin to succeed Leo Varadkar following his surprising resignation last month. Harris ran unopposed to replace Varadkar as the leader of the ruling party, and the final formalities were completed in Ireland's parliament. Harris was elected to parliament at 24 and appointed to cabinet before he turned 30. Before Harris, Varadkar was the country's youngest ever leader when first elected at age 38. And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has congratulated Simon Harris on becoming the youngest ever Prime Minister of Ireland. In a tweet, he said, and I quote, "Highly value our historical ties that are based on shared belief in democratic values. Looking forward to work together to further strengthen India-Ireland bilateral partnership," unquote. The top court in the U.S. state of Arizona on Tuesday upheld an 1864 law that bans nearly all abortions. The court ruled 4-2 in favor of an anti-abortion obstetrician. But the court put its ruling on hold for the moment and sent the case back to the lower court to hear additional arguments. The ruling was focused on a law on the books long before Arizona achieved statehood. It outlaws abortion from the moment of conception, except when necessary to save the life of the mother, and it makes no exceptions for rape or incest. Doctors prosecuted under the law could face fines and 2 to 5 years in prison.
Arizona's 2022 abortion ban is extreme and hurts women. And the near total Civil War-era ban that continues to hang over our heads only serves to create more chaos for women and doctors in our state. As governor, I promised I would do everything in my power to protect our reproductive freedoms.
Denouncing the Arizona abortion ban, U.S. President Joe Biden said on Tuesday that millions of Arizonians will soon live under an even more extreme and dangerous ban. Biden said that this ruling is a result of the extreme agenda of Republican elected officials who are committed to ripping away women's freedom. Still to come on DD India Live. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds an election rally in the southern state of Tamil Nadu. Samajwadi Party releases its manifesto for India's general election, promises a caste-based census by 2025. And Fitch Ratings downgrades China's credit rating outlook.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Let's now get you the latest on the world's largest democratic election in India. Prime Minister Modi held a rally in the southern state of Tamil Nadu. He hit out at the opposition, saying that under the ruling DMK party, Tamil Nadu is not getting a chance to prosper. Consequently, the youth are suffering. The Prime Minister addressed a gathering in Mettupalayam town as well. He also visited the state of Maharashtra for a public rally in Ramtek city.
Tamil Nadu के लिए एक डेवलप भारत का नेतृत्व करने का समय है। लेकिन डीएमके तमिलनाडु को पुरानी सोच में, पुरानी पॉलिटिक्स में फंसाकर रखना चाहती है। पूरी डीएमके एक फैमिली की कंपनी बनकर रह गई है। डीएमके की फैमिली पॉलिटिक्स की वजह से तमिलनाडु के यूथ को आगे बढ़ने का मौका नहीं मिल रहा है। डीएमके से चुनाव लड़ने और डीएमके में आगे बढ़ने के लिए 3 मेन क्राइटेरिया है, 3 मेन क्राइटेरिया है। फर्स्ट, फैमिली पॉलिटिक्स, सेकंड, करप्शन, थर्ड, anti-Tamil culture.
India's Home Minister Amit Shah campaigned in West Bengal's Balurghat. Addressing a gathering, Minister Shah committed himself to stopping infiltration in the state of West Bengal and Assam under the BJP government. The minister is to visit Aurangabad in the state of Bihar next. Both West Bengal and Bihar will see voting in 7 phases. India's Defence Minister Rajat Singh held a public rally at Saharanpur city in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh. He'll visit Bulandshahr and Sambhal as well. Uttar Pradesh is one of the 3 Indian states along with Bihar and West Bengal which will hold the polling in 7 phases. The Samajwadi Party released its manifesto on Wednesday. It promised a caste-based census by 2025. SP President Akhilesh Yadav committed to introducing regular recruitment in the Indian Armed Forces. The Samajwadi Party is contesting the election as part of an alliance. Moving on, an official investigation into the allegations of foreign meddling in Canada elections has concluded that India did not try to interfere in Canadian politics. A panel of senior Canadian officials monitoring the 2021 election in the country were not informed of any attempt by India to influence national polls, the probe found. But the Canadian Intelligence Agency found that China did interfere in Canada's last 2 elections. This comes days after the Canada Security Intelligence Service alleged that India and Pakistan attempted to interfere in the Canadian elections that took place in 2019 and 2021. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party won both elections held in 2019 and 2021. Under pressure from opposition lawmakers unhappy about media reports on China's possible role, Trudeau had set up a commission into foreign interference. As per reports, Apple has ramped up its iPhone production in India, hitting a remarkable $14 billion in the last fiscal year and doubling its output in the country in what could be seen as a diversification in manufacturing beyond China. Manufacturing in India has picked up since 2017 because of various production-linked incentives for more than a dozen key sectors, attracting several gadget makers to set up shop in the country. The schemes are expected to boost the electronics manufacturing landscape and establish India as a global electronics sector. Fitch Ratings downgraded China's credit ratings outlook on Wednesday, citing concerns over growing public debt as the economy faces increasing uncertainty in its shift to new growth models. It downgraded China's credit rating outlook to negative from stable. It follows a similar move by Moody's in December last year. Fitch expects China's gross domestic product to fall to 4.5% this year from 5.2% last year, amid persistent weakness in the property market and weak consumer spending. China's deflationary trend also remains a concern, Fitch said, with continued deflation posing greater risks to the country's GDP. In sports news, Spanish club Barcelona will face French club Paris Saint-Germain on Wednesday in the first leg of their quarter-final clash in the Champions League. Currently in a good vein of form, having won 8 of its last 11 matches in all competitions, Xavi's side has conceded only 1 goal in its last 6 matches and stands second in the La Liga table, 8 points behind leaders Real Madrid. Barca has qualified for the Champions League quarterfinals for the first time in 4 years, something they did every season between 2007-08 and 2019-20. In 2017, Barca made it through to the last 16 after an epic come-from-behind tie against PSG, winning 6-1 in the second leg at the Camp Nou after losing the first leg 4-0 in Paris. On the other hand, PSG is still seeking its first Champions League trophy. PSG last reached the semi-final stage in 2021, and with the League One title more or less wrapped up, along with a place in the Coupe de France final, the focus now turns to the competition, which the club wants to win more than any other. Germany's Borussia Dortmund will face Spanish club Atletico Madrid in another quarter-final first leg in Spain on Wednesday. Borussia Dortmund's coach said that the match against Atletico Madrid will be a top-level test. Dortmund, who won the group of death ahead of PSG, Milan and Newcastle, will face Diego Simeone's squad at the Metropolitano Stadium. The German side has made it through to the last 8 of the Champions League for the first time since 2021. The Netherlands forward Doniel Malen has been ruled out of the match with illness. On the other hand, Atletico Madrid is hosting the first leg at its home, which has been somewhat of a fortress for it this season, having lost there just twice in all competitions. French forward Antoine Griezmann will be the key man for Atletico. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India Live. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.